Hey, what's up?
Hey Kunal,
Hey
we're
guys,
just
what's
waiting.
up? How are you?
All good.
Hey, hey, hey.
Great to see you. It's like I haven't seen you in ages. While we were just catching up on all the tech stuff 5 minutes ago. So I think we have to keep up appearances for the screen.
This is like the movies, uh, before somebody asks you a question, you already know the answer because you answered that question so many times, and you have to pretend like you're answering it for the first time. You're like,
Isn't
"Oh,
that
my
hard though?
question. That's a very interesting question. Let me tell you what I think is the answer to that." And you've already just answered that like some 45 times before. So I know the feeling. Yes.
Pretty hard. I think that you never have that problem with artists, I think, because I have never known how to respond when artists ask questions. It's so left of field. It's always a sucker punch from the side. So that's one of the reasons why I think this conversation is going to be super fun. Um, we have some amazing artists on board here. Hi,
Luckily, we are
Papertripping.
asking the questions today, no? We're not getting
Yes,
asked questions.
yes, yes. I think
That's a
that's the
good thing.
best.
That's a
That's the
good thing.
best way to do it. Yeah. So, so we are live. So where do we begin? I think we have some help from some of our friends here, but I think intros are in order first. No. Um, I think the easiest people to intro are the ones that need no introduction. So let's begin from Kunal in that case. Um, Kunal, I'm a massive fan of yours. You're a prolific actor. You are an entrepreneur, and from my perspective, from someone who's been in the NFT space, the Web3 space for a while, you've been one of the earliest champions of Web3 culture, of NFT culture from India. And I'm a massive fan of that aspect of yours as well. A tiny this thing, one of your movies, my favorites is a movie where you play a rebel against the system, essentially. And I think it's very fitting that you are in Web3 now, which is practically like an anthem. The entire space is like a rebellion against the system, essentially, especially this unlabel program that we're doing as part of eDAO is a massive voice against the established art system, which has been super exploitative, but in a super clever way, I'd say, right? For centuries together, they have claimed to celebrate art while completely sidelining the artists. I don't know how they've done it so effectively for centuries now. And I hope that, with the tools that Web3 is finally able to provide to us, we can kind of overcome it and we can celebrate where the art comes from and not just the art itself. So welcome, Kunal, for being, and thank you so much for being part of this with us.
Thanks. Thank you so much. Yeah. I'm excited about this. I've been excited about it ever since you bounced the idea off me. And obviously, I'm very excited that you're involved in this because I know how deeply passionate you are about the space and how much you want to do for the space. So it's great to be on this chat and chat with these wonderful artists. I've seen their work and really enjoyed the work that they're doing. And yeah, I think this is going to be fun.
Absolutely. Well, without further ado, I'd love to say hi to the artists and have them introduce themselves because anything we say is going to fall short. We have Sajid Wajid, who has had more than a few forays into the NFT space. He's been part of a massive drop on OpenSea, which everybody's loved with Polygon, and we have Vishwesh Papertripping, who he's collaborating with for Unlabel. Sajid, please say hi.
Hey guys, I am Sajid. I'm a multidisciplinary artist. So what it means is like from basically drawing to films, to NFTs, to screen prints, to everything that catches my attention. I kind of get like interested in it, and then like it almost becomes like a rabbit hole. So it's sort of like interesting avenues to explore, and then I kind of develop processes which sort of lead me to images, and I generally enjoy the process which sort of lead me to the image. And it also is a really interesting space because I sit and draw all the time, so it allows for me to indulge into like philosophical books, like audio books and stuff. So I'm sort of like sitting and drawing all the time, and then also getting informed way too much about the excess of other philosophical terms and stuff like that. So yeah, like I mean, everything sort of just then boils down into like art at the end of the day. But yeah, it's just like a vague space.
Okay, I mean, you've had a super eclectic journey through your art, right? You've explored multiple disciplines and mediums. Can you give the audiences a sense of what you've done, something in the public domain, for instance? See, for instance, if when the moment people look at Kunal, they remember Rang De Basanti, like the spice and the magic of that movie. Because I'm a massive cinephile, so I remember his entire filmography. But the first thing that pops into your head is Rang De Basanti. So if someone looked at Sajid's work, what do you think would pop up immediately?
Oh, that's actually very difficult to answer. Like I've actually done two Google Doodles. So Mohammad Rafi's Google Doodle is something that's kind of iconic. I've also painted a bunch of murals. So I painted India's first high court, which is in Matunga. So that was like a collaboration between me and Canada and Start India. So a lot of mural work, which sort of becomes like avenues for me to like express myself like in the open space. So that is also something, but it's very hard to pin down that this is something that people recognize me for because I keep changing forms. Like I don't stick to one particular medium or anything as such. So it's just like it actually gets really difficult to maneuver through, like I mean, as and when people start getting accustomed to the kind of images that I create, I kind of get bored and I sort of change it. So it's sort of like a very difficult position to be in, but that's how like the process is, I think.
What would you say is like your most sort of deeply personal work? Like which piece of work have you done and you've said that, okay, this has come from, this as an artist is the most satisfying piece of work that I've done?
So I generally work on sketchbooks. So like how I look at sketchbooks is a very different approach in the sense like I don't read sketchbooks as just like mere place where I like indulge in like ideas, but the sketchbook itself becomes the work. So I sort of go into the idea of like say for example like a sketchbook is say like a good 500 pages book. So it sort of like gives you that much amount of time, say like a 1 year or 1.5 year of just like sitting down drawing every day. So once that book is complete to the brim, that actually is the most satisfying thing at the end of the day. It's sort of like you kind of see it sort of like looks like a time capsule. So also like all this everything that goes on in the head sort of boils down in that sketch in the pages. And I kind of also indulge in the idea of there is no right or wrong. So everything that goes on the paper is right. So the idea is that every next page is another like masterpiece. So like it's just like a journey of 1.5 year, then it gets over. And then once that is done, I jump onto another sketchbook. So it's almost like those sketchbooks are primarily something that I sort of see myself in it, like especially because of the time I spent on them.
So is there a possibility of ever NFTing a full sketchbook? I think that's what you should do next.
I am
NFTs of like sketchbooks, like physical assets and digital assets of that.
I know. I mean, I have like a good 10 sketchbooks, I guess, which I'm sort of thinking of like, making them into like an NFT, like, whoever buys the NFT would then probably get the book itself. So like
Nice.
I'm still figuring it's very hard to actually do that because it's so personal, right? Like it's like you literally go from 2018 to 2017 carrying that book almost everywhere, to every project, everything. I mean, in the middle of the conversation, you're sitting and sketching. So all those like remnants of those conversations also like sort of filter in the book. So yeah, I mean, probably once I have like too many of them, then I'll probably think of them. But yeah,
Amazing.
it is something that I'm looking at, honestly. Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, speaking of time capsules and NFTs, I think these two are the catalysts that brought you and Papertripping together, Vishwesh.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd love to know Vishwesh, what has been your art journey so far, and how did you sort of touch the NFT space? Is it just through Unlabel, or have you known Sajid from before?
Right. So yeah, my name is Vishwesh Menon, aka Papertripping, and if you would ask me directly, I don't relate to myself as an artist, because I learned like Sajid, I'm self-taught, and always in this space that I need to get there. I'll get there someday, right? Until I met Sajid, and and so before that, it was all learning animation. And when I got into animation is very structured kind of industry. You have a script, you have characters, you got to animate them, and when you're animating them, you got to draw those characters on model. Everything's got to be perfect. You have a model sheet, and the drawing is also very structured. You construct the character from its basic shapes and then build expressions on it, and you can draw the character in different positions. And so it's a very disciplined kind of art form. It's also a technical art form. And so the initial part of my career was looking up to all these great artists that I worked with at these studios. I worked at large studios that did shows for Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon and the likes. And I'd see their work and aspire to be like that, right? This very structured kind of thing. I quit my job about 10 years ago, and I started my own practice. And in my own practice, that's when I began to experiment with different styles and techniques and all of that. Yet it was always within that kind of animation SI hota hai. Like you have these characters and you have these stories, and it has to go somewhere, and so that was my journey, trying to learn, and everything was self-learned. And so I got into service, and I was doing service for businesses and companies, making animation for them. And when I met Sajid in 2017, he himself is also a self-taught, creator, and I found a lot of, we found a lot of things common in the way we, approached art. And I began to see that for him, like he said, he mentioned on this call that there's nothing right or wrong, right? And that was really liberating for me, right? Because till that point, everything was, it's either right or wrong. It's either on model or not, right? And that kind of opened up, so, I started picking up things from him. And, that opened up my whole view of art. And, and then, that's when I began to look at myself, or began to constitute myself as an artist, rather than someone who just puts things together, and so since 2017 till now, the journey, we've been working together on, some paid client projects as well, and some free stuff that we've been doing for our own, for our own selves. And it all started with about 2 years ago, I kind of, flicked a painting, a drawing, a sketch. It was framed from Sajid's studio. And, I just flicked it, He,
hey, what's up? How are you doing? Join our conversation.
Yeah. What's up? We are live. Huh?
What's up, man? Your dad is a very good artist. Do you know that?
Yeah. Love that T-shirt.
So yeah, and so I flicked that piece from his house, and I brought it to my place, and it was there in my in my study for a long time. And on his birthday in 2019, I thought I'd do something about it, and so I just clicked a picture of it and brought it into the computer and just cut it up and made a walk cycle of it. And it turned out to be a really trippy kind of walk cycle. And I gifted it to him on his birthday. And that kind of kicked off this, hey man, like he saw that, and he was totally blown over, and he was like, dude, we need to do more of this. And that happened to become our first NFT, which which was minted earlier this year. And so that's how,
Awesome. That's such a cool story of collaboration. Yeah, I mean, this is a question I keep getting asked really often, right? People seem to think that visual artists who use like static mediums, it's impossible to collaborate because obviously you're confined to that particular medium. How do you collaborate? You guys are the perfect example of how that happens, right? Because as spectators from the outside, it feels like these two things cannot meet because they look so different. Mediums are different, the styles are different, the people are different. kinds of people. So it's exciting to see this kind of a collaboration. I've got one question for both of you, though, right?
Yeah.
This again comes from a lot of conversations I have with not artists, obviously. They never ask me this question, but people who want to understand the process of art. So there are two elements as they understand it. One is skill in some particular area, and the other is imagination. Obviously, the imagination thing, the zone that you guys tap into, the thing that you guys smoke. I mean, I'd like some of that, but I know that it's completely accessible to normal human beings. But there is this element of skill also, right? So for artists like you two who jump mediums and who sort of experiment with a variety of things, do you ever feel like you're missing out on like honing a skill in one particular direction, or are you guys actually zeroing on something else entirely? It's not the medium, it's something else that you guys are training yourself on. If you catch
it. So basically, it's not like you're not really going to hone something to a point where like it becomes like something that's like fully mastered. Like the idea of mastering something is about getting bored with it. So when you get like fully mastered, acquainted with like one kind of medium, for me it just becomes like I get up and then I'm just making that kind of like I'm dripping that same paint, I'm doing the same paper, like I'm just doing the same process over and over again. So it's all about the process, like it's all about like how do you make a dal, right? Like you take the simple like ingredients, you put it in this thing, and imagine like you're doing it like over and over and over again. Obviously, your dal is going to be really amazing, but eventually you're going to be getting bored of making that dal, right? And that's what is the best analogy here, where I'm not looking at mastering something, but just being interested in like curious about doing something, and then to the point of curiosity where it becomes like a mastery. And then once you master something, then I sort of become like a machine, right? Like you start, it becomes formulaic. It becomes almost like you do the same thing. Like there is no newness, no freshness to it. So then the freshness, when it sort of goes away, you sort of start looking at a newer, fresher approach, or to something else. It sort of makes you alive, makes you more adventurous than making you look like a robot or something.
I'm going to make a T-shirt out of that. Mastery is, getting to a point where you're bored of it. By that rule, I think I'm a master of mathematics, physics, of Mridangam, of employment. I very quickly reach boredom with all of these things.
What happens with everyone.
Yeah, but I get exactly what
I'm not bored of anything, so I think I'm not. I need to work on this. I need to reach a place where I'm bored.
I just get confined in this like studio, and then like this like things just like start like building up to the point where everything looks similar, and then you need to really like throw a lot of stuff out mentally and physically to make room for something new to come in. And yeah, I mean in your case, like your craft is very different, like like you're literally meeting another person in you every time. Like correct me if I'm wrong, like
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
it's also like that's again like a process, like you enter another human being's mind. Correct. And try and become that. And it is very similar in this case, but it's just visual. Like I become another person altogether. I think it's almost like acting.
That's really fascinating. There's there was this. I think it was eDAO Portal. I don't know if you know of eDAO Portal. He's a fitness coach, and he's a really popular one. Okay, so eDAO Portal said something really interesting. He said that there's 3 stages to learning, right? One is the struggle, where you're trying to like sort of learn something new and you're struggling with it. Then there's the second phase where you're starting to get better, but you need to sort of practice every day, right, to get better. And then there's the third phase, which is mastery, which is that the growth is very incremental. So he has done some research on like brain scans in different stages, right? And he's found that the maximum growth happens in the struggle phase.
Yeah.
Because when you're attempting to learn something new, the
Yeah.
struggle, the frustration, that whole process of, oh God, I can't do this, and this is really difficult, is actually when there's maximum amount of activity happening in the brain. So
Yeah.
his belief is that you need to put yourself in these three constant states. So you need to be in a state where you're mastering something, in a state where you're getting better at something, and a state where you're struggling with something. And I found that really sort of interesting as
Amazing.
a creative person as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Fascinating.
You always start with
I think we should add a phase of boredom also to it, because interestingly enough, I was sort of racking my brain to try and remember where I'd heard this particular phrase before. It was another artist, interestingly. There's a glitch artist called Papertripping, right? So he speaks of boredom again. He says that it's a mountain he has to climb every time he finishes with a particular process, right? But he sort of has begun to enjoy the process because it pushes him into, like, it's like breaking the sound barrier almost, right? So you have to push through it, because if you do, you find something else. The moment you're satisfied with one particular zone, then you're not growing anymore, as they say.
Yeah.
This is great. Okay, just switching tracks just a little bit, and diving back into the NFT space.
But there's,
Kunal,
there's something
yeah.
that came to my
sorry.
mind that I want to share here, while
Sure.
we're speaking about owning your skills. And like I was saying, when I was an animator, I'd watch these guys, on their drawing boards with a bunch of paper and drawing characters. And as they flip through, you can see the animation, you can see performance happen, right? And I would want to draw like that because, it's all about the draftsmanship with, and you can see them draw expressions and performances in those papers. And if you would go around the studio asking, how do I get better, the only way they would say is ghaso, matlab ghaste raho, drawing karte raho, right? Keep doing live drawing, right? And I did that, and that is the struggle. And what happens is that you have this ideal where you want to get to, right? Like, if I can draw like that, I would have made it, right? But then and there was this deep conversation I had with Sajid when I actually met him. And, drawing that way for me was just one gateway into art. It was just one gateway into art. And, drawing another way where there is nothing right, like, you're just squiggling. That's another way. Just throwing color onto, onto a canvas without thinking. That's another way. And that's when I got introduced to that. You can approach art from various places. And so therefore what's key is freedom. You allowing yourself the freedom to do that, right? Until I was trying to go for that ideal that I want to get here, I want to be able to do that, I kind of limited myself. And when I was free to experiment and just free, like, there is nothing right, there is nothing wrong, and all of it is whatever comes out, and that's it. That's what it is, and in that freedom there is. And so essentially, you ask this question, is it a journey or well, I think everything then connects because it's your personal journey, right? Whether you do it from here or whether you do it from here, or you put yourself into owning a skill, it all culminates at one point, I guess.
Amazing.
I think I hope I'm communicating.
No, very accurately, because it takes it all back to the sketchbook analogy, right? It's like what you've described, your process of life itself is how Sajid approaches his sketchbook. There's no right or wrong. It just fills up over a period of time, but it is precious. Right. It's all art. So by that standard, I think art then becomes an attitude almost, right? It's not a skill. It's not a particular ideal that you have to achieve, but it's an attitude. That's amazing, man. Awesome.
Tell me something. Where did the name Papertripping come from? Like, what was what's the source of that?
Oh man, you know what paper is, right? So yeah, you can draw on paper, you can do all kinds of things, and you can eat certain kinds of paper and trip as well, right? And it's all.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so about.
I don't think we need more. That's fine.
Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about. So let's say that. Okay, Kunal, very quickly to you, right? I was curious about, while I've been following you as a fan and as a spectator from the outside, Can you tell me a little bit about your journey in the NFT space? How has the space treated you, and how do you jump in?
Well, I think when I sort of explored and discovered what NFTs were, it was, I think, late December 2022 or something. December 2020. And I'm obviously an actor and turning producer and writing scripts right now. And I also am the co-founder of a crowdfunding platform called Keto. And for me, what was very interesting is that in Keto, I get a chance to deep dive into things that I believe in, which is decentralization, which is community, which is democratization of capital. Those are things that have always interested me, and which is why I wanted to create something like Keto, because it was the coming together of all those things, right? And then, obviously, as an actor, what is very interesting to me is to be creative, to tell stories. Those are things that really excite me. Now, with NFTs, what I found, at least the potential of it, I don't think we've reached the potential as yet, because there's been so many scams and there's been so many rug pulls and, influencers pushing projects unnecessarily and stuff, right? But what really
Don't look at me, bro.
What really interested me and got me hooked to the whole space was the fact that it was actually the coming together of both the things that I enjoyed, right? It was storytelling, it was creativity, and at the same time, it was community and decentralization. So both the disciplines and both the spaces that I really enjoyed, I felt like the NFT space was the coming together of both those things. And for me, that was something that was really exciting. Like I'm saying is that, I think we've only sort of scratched the surface right now. I think there's just too many people that are out there that are just pushing projects and making money and stuff. But I believe that the potential of this technology is incredible. And, it's going to grow exponentially over the next couple of years. And like I said, this is just phase one. I think we're going to get to phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4, where it's going to look completely different from what it looks like right now.
Totally agree. Speaking of phase 1 and phase 2, I want to put this to, again, Sajid and Vishwesh. Sajid, you've been in the NFT space a little longer than Vishwesh, I suppose. Can you describe to the artists that are tuning in and listening to this, what the difference is you felt in terms of not just the creative process, but also the idea of ownership and commerce and stuff before and after NFTs for you?
Yeah, very interesting, because like Kunal was saying, it is something that you can merge like two different areas of interest. So I'm, as much as I'm drawing on these like sketchbooks, they don't serve like any monetary purpose. And at the same time, I do graphic design and illustration and other creative jobs to just keep the lights on. And those were two clear distinctions I kept making, where like now it's sort of like merging together. Now I'm like, I have these very cool skill sets of illustrating images as per a brief. And then I had this idea of like, oh, that I do for money. What I do for the love of it is something completely different, is on the paper. And over a period of like, say, 5 years of just me just sitting and making on these papers, I had to move out of Bombay to have a bigger studio to be able to hold all those things together. And then then you have to take those and go to a gallery and then show them your work. And then there's already this like huge line of people who's coming from all sorts of like spaces in the world to the galleries. And then the galleries are very limited. We are not a country with every corner you have a gallery. And then the gallery system works in a very class oriented space, right? Like it works in the space of how elite you are in the sense of like art itself. Whereas this becomes like an open ground where I can work with anybody who I've worked with on a commercial background and take their expertise and like use them and use my work and mix them together and then create something that's actually furthermore in terms of like creating these images. Like if I had to be able to create what I'm creating right now for you guys, I would have created that, and then I would have gotten into like oil paintings and stuff, because that's how generally the gallery system works. The gallery system, by the turn of this NFT revolution, sort of didn't really look at digital art as art. It was just like a means to an end. But now all of those things are coming together. So my draftsmanship on the paper, plus my understanding of the computer, of just this idea of undo button, right? Like there is no right and wrong, but when you have this undo button, it's just like your brain just explodes, and then you can just do like make that image to the perfection. So now I'm looking at it in the sense of like I'm using oil color techniques, my graphic design techniques. All of these techniques are into this kind of like hot, like boiling pot, and then something very amazing is coming out. Like, and then at the same time, the hope of making money out of it, right? Like it's a very vulgar way of looking at it, but as an artist, but like that is actually such a really relieving thing, where you're not really looking at, oh, you have to be in a certain place. Now I can actually go anywhere in the country or outside the country, or go to the remote village and actually just create and then sell those artworks as, and have a very interesting life, then to be in Bombay, go get to those meetings and like then produce something. And then I always get that feedback from the clients, tone it down, And while I understand toning it down has always been somewhere like a middle ground. I am on the Himalaya, someone else is on the K2. We'll meet somewhere in the center. But now I am going beyond Himalaya. I feel like this is just like the initial scratch marks of where I'm at,
Sorry.
and I
Okay.
think I can push it. I can. For me, it should be like you're just doing too much. Like it should be like, or tone it down, like which I don't want to.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's I
No,
think.
that's yeah. No, I understand exactly what you're talking about, and what comes out of what you just said to me is what you do for yourself and what you do for money need not be different, or rather should not be different in life, right? So that's kind of what the NFT space has done for you. And even this idea that an artist should not think about money, or should not look at a monetary benefit, has been, I think, years of conditioning. Rather than, I think we are allowed to think about money, we are allowed to think of having a life or a livelihood, right, out of the art.
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
maybe not
Uh,
attaching a price tag to the art, that is secondary. The
yeah.
fact that what you do with passion or with love ought to make you money, I don't think is vulgar at all. But thanks so much for that. But I think that's a perfect segue to really get into what the two of you are building for Unlabel this time. This is like a super slow burn build up of the art that you have created together, I think. So would you mind sharing a little bit of that, Vishwesh and Sajid?
Yeah, Vishwesh.
Okay, so yeah, I'll just share my screen. So we still don't have consensus. We are still exploring, and so I'm not gonna just a second. Let's share screen.
So I'll just divulge into this concept of what we're doing.
Yeah.
So like what we are looking at is just like this kind of like entry into this new world, and we are taking those cues as our gateway into the NFT world. Like me and Vishwesh, where we initially just did things for fun. Like he took like a drawing and then he made something on my birthday and stuff like that. Now we're looking at it in the sense of like having those same ideas, but now like a lot of eyeballs are on that, in the sense of like what we are creating. So what we're creating is this kind of like uh, this kind of creature, which is sort of has this kind of DNA with exists within the NFT world, which is basically Pepe the Frog. and this is actually a samurai Pepe the Frog,
Uh-huh.
and it's basically come to this world, which is basically this really imaginary jungle of sort, and it's basically like looking at this kind of mushroom where it's sort of about to eat it, and विशु मैं तेरे को वो बताऊँ क्या like
क्या
मैं screen share करूँ क्या
तू शेयर
like
कर हाँ
एक मिनट रुका मैं
yeah you share your screen but then go ahead just turn this on.
one minute I'm just sharing the screen. Can you guys see?
Just a second.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Things come up.
Yeah.
I think Vishwesh needs to turn off his sharing.
I stopped.
एक minute. I'm just like quickly sharing the idea of what the image is looking like, and then where it is sort of going.
Interesting.
So it's basically this guy who's fully blown out, and basically this is the world of which it belongs. Like these are the kind of trees and everything, the flora and the fauna. It has a lot of like hidden frogs within the trees, like tree frogs. It has trees which has ears and stuff in it, and essentially this is the image that we're working on. And what the entire image is a cliffhanger in a way. So the idea is that this Pepe the Frog, Samurai Pepe the Frog, which has this kind of warrior archetype in it, has come to this land where he's trying to maybe he's conquered the world, now he's come to this world, and then he's about to experience this life in a very different light. And then when you look at it on the in the background, you see this kind of like meteor or this comet that's going to fall on the earth, you know. So when he's sort of going to eat the mushroom, he's going to experience another kind of realm that he will enter. But at the same time, the world is about to destroy itself, like almost like the extinction of the dinosaurs. But now the idea is that does he feel
Okay.
like this destruction? Does he feel that this is a trip, or is this a reality? And that is the segue into something else that we are planning to do in the future. But that's just like a trailer to what we think. So yeah, like over to Vishwesh. I think Vishwesh is doing like a job.
No, that's I have nothing more to say.
Listen, how do you guys divide the work? But like, how does that get like sort of when you're working on something together?
Right.
Who puts in like, how do you decide, okay, this is what I'm going to do and this is what you should be doing?
So Vishwesh gave me
we had like a whole lot of conversations before this. Like we've been in conversation before Unlabel actually. Like before Unlabel also happened, we've been talking about okay, we want to make an NFT. What do we do? And so each of our calls go all over the place, and we're talking about all kinds of things. And and so one of our calls, some ideas came through, and he began to do this. And so some kind of inputs come from me, and then he's built that character. And Sajid, you can continue.
Yeah, so like the idea was we were just discussing, and he went through like my old drawings, and I had like the drawing that he animated initially was a part of this larger like ecosystem of drawings. So one of the other character was this guy, like he was sort of like this drummer who's sort of like taking the voyage and stuff like that. So he said like I'd love to like animate this guy because it's got like a lot of like elements that he can move and see like how to give life to this image. But the image was very hand drawn, and like I said, like because I'd drawn that like I think in 2018 or something, and then I've grown out of that style. I thought I'll give it like a new take, and then I started drawing this. At the same time, like I was just drawing on pieces of paper and doing things for clients on computer. So both times you felt like you need to do something for yourself on a computer, and that's where like the world merged, and then pura bhadas that was left in that commercial space came out in this piece altogether. So I'm sort of like I developed that style initially. I sent it over to him and I asked him like, can we do something like this? Then he flipped out a little bit. Then he went into shell, came back saying with a solution saying, let's do it in Blender. Then he's using something completely different, a new software that he's learned over a period of time. So it's sort of like a very interesting, like give and take, give and take, give and take, like where I keep like calling him up and then like, kya ho raha hai, kya ho raha hai, kya ho raha hai? And he's like it's interesting, like, and then he'll add like some elements of his trip on, like, let's add that moth in somewhere, let's add this somewhere, that somewhere, and then it's a very organic to and fro that we are doing, and then it's also like pushing each other, like when you have somebody who can animate that hectic a character, like I go to like I work with bunch of different animators, and they're not all of them are that ballsy to take something that's that like wild,
Yeah.
and then like
Every time I see this guy's artwork, I'm like, dude, isko kaise karenge abhi? I gotta figure this out. It's always it's a puzzle now. So even right now with this artwork, like I have no idea on the workflow, and so I'm trying to figure out how am I going to animate it, because there's this really clean outline. So we don't want to boil that, and we want to do, like, we can't do everything in hand drawn because that will take forever. So how do we kind of find the technical process to create this? So that's what I'm working on right now.
This is like now an open invitation to any artists or animators that are watching that. How do you solve a process like this? You've seen a snippet of the artwork now. You know what Vishwesh's problem is, the mountain of work that he has in front of him. Any of you guys have any solutions, you write back to us. But this is so fascinating. For me, some works of art, they sort of they focus on a story particularly, right? They're telling you a narrative. Other works of art are like kind of synesthetic almost. They convey either a feeling or a texture or a sound or a smell. I feel sometimes. I don't know if everybody views it like that. For me, this one was all about texture. I feel it's like being hit in the face with like a jello or something of that sort. No, it's like a squishy ball smashing into your face and sort of going inside you and doing all sorts of stuff. That's the kind of feeling I get. I can't wait to see it.
Man.
I can't wait to see it like animated.
Yeah. Like that's the whole game. Like I don't start with an idea. Like I just start with like drawing something, and then while making it like retro, like fit certain ideas, and then like those ideas then develop into something else. It's almost like a very organic, like you take like cooking, like without really cooking a particular dish, you enter the kitchen and then you start like by boiling water and then like seeing, चलो कुछ डाल के देखते हैं और क्या होता है और क्या होता है और क्या, so it's like that.
Bro, I really hope you're not cooking. Yeah, that's not how cooking works. I can tell you.
As long as we are not eating, it's fine.
Yeah, please stick to art. Cooking, let somebody else do. This is amazing, guys. Amazing. Let's get a little abstract for a second. Back to the NFT thing. Everybody has different analogies of what NFTs mean to them, right? Different examples, time capsule, or culture capsule, this and that. Vishwesh, what does NFT mean to you? What does the space sort of mean to you? What's that like building block that you see, which says, okay, this is what NFT is?
So yeah, as in to be honest, it's constantly changing for me. Like I got introduced to this when CryptoKitties came out in 2017, and at that time me and Sajid were working on an explainer video for an ICO. It was a initial coin. Yeah, and so
Okay.
so at that time, and that's when I kind of both of us got into the blockchain, because we had to understand what this ICO was. It was a journalistic platform. They were creating a decentralized journalistic platform called PressCoin, and the coin was going to be PressCoin and all of that. And So, we created a big, like a 90-second animated explainer video explaining what it is. And in the process of creating that, we had to write the script, and so we had to understand this thing. And CryptoKitties came out at that time, and I couldn't get my head around it. Like, I was like, why are people mating these cats and they don't even look that great? Like, what's the point? And it took me all of, and it's constantly thinking of, in 2017, 2018, 2019, things kept evolving, the space kept changing, and what NFT meant to me kept changing. Like, even now, like, I'm trying to bring my head around it, like, as to what the future holds for this. I know that the bottom line is that it will bring freedom to people like us, right? People like me and Sajid, it'll bring freedom to do what we want to do, right? Like, right now, my life is run by the bills that I need to pay, right? And that does not allow me to, to express myself on the things that I want to, right? It kind of limits me. And I see the NFTs and, generating or creating communities that around these NFTs, and actually having value to those NFTs, like utility for those NFTs. I see that aspect, that dimension, as freedom for people like me, right? And that's, I still can't define NFTs. I still can't, I'm still understand, because every day the space is changing. So, like, it's so fluid. It's just changing every day, right? And so, yeah, and every time, like, about a year ago, there's a site called rarity.tools, and that's where all the upcoming drops, collections, are put up, when the drop is going to happen, and it's kind of like the insider. And I'd go through all those projects, and I'd kind of try to figure out, okay, what's the formula here? What kind of project will work in this NFT? And how can I, come up? And then I made a list of ideas, and then I bounced it off to Sajid. And Sajid was like, yaar, apun art karte yaar, ye sab chhod. And then I kind of, and with Sajid, we kind of have these really deep conversations. And, when he says something, then that puts me on one path. And then I say something to him, and that puts him on some other path. And so me coming to him with that NFT idea put him on some path, and it kind of got me off the NFT path. So I was like, okay, chalo, let's just concentrate on, and he went on to the NFT thing then at that point. And then we came back, and he said, yeah, NFT karte. And so that's, so to answer your question, for me, NFTs, holds freedom. It's kind of the key to freedom. Freedom from the drudgery of client work, freedom from from dumbing down what we are, dumbing down our potential, like agencies and corporates dumbing us down. Yeah.
The fun part is, what we've seen in the NFT space is that that's where you discover and push your boundaries and come up with something new, right? The same agencies and clients come back there, because that's where now the newness is. So I love how you defined it: fluidity and freedom. Kunal sir, what's your idea of NFTs? Your big idea of NFTs?
Well, like Vishwesh said, it's obviously something that is very fluid and it keeps changing. But for me, as a creative person and as somebody in the movies and as a storyteller, I think what I find really exciting is the possibility. I know it's a faraway dream as yet, but the possibility of creating decentralized IP, the possibility of creating a community and then building IP with the community and having the community involved and, part of that IP, not only in terms of ownership, but also in terms of contribution. And I think for me, that is the most exciting part of it.
And I don't think we're that far away from that, to be honest. I mean, you have already begun some super interesting experiments in Loverbot, and eDAO is all about trying to produce content that is blockchain native, not imported from Web2, along with all its bells and whistles and contracts and IP, dead weight around it. Right? So we will find a way to do that, but I think we're closer to it than many people realize, and I hope to see what you're building come to fruition, Kunal.
Thanks, thank you so much.
We're waiting for it.
Thanks.
Sajid, what's NFTs to you?
NFTs, they don't really change so much in terms of like, I mean, I don't want to become like super optimistic or pessimistic about anything in general. But come to think of like the most ideal scenario, you start becoming like a mint, you start minting like artwork, which is actually currency. And
Oh my God.
like
Okay.
and you start like I mean, ideal scenario is like you sit in the bathroom, you're creating like a piece on your phone, and you sort of like mm, mint it out, and then you get money out of it, and then that's just like everyone will start looking very differently at you, like as an artist. Like right now, as an artist, like there is a lot of weightage on the term artist also, but it will change a lot of things like in the future.
Hmm.
Like we will sort of be compared to like the artists like who we look up to, like the music artists generally also, right? Or like actors in general also, like
Hmm.
uh, they're all working on the same like systems deep down somewhere, but the approach or the way you look at someone else than someone as an artist is very different. Like so people who create like graphic oriented artworks are going to be looked at very differently once everything starts working out in the perfect way. Like we are still hoping, it's just like a plan. Once like it's just like a seed that we put in, we see like one sapling coming out of it. अभी वो पूरा झाड़ बन के जब पूरा फ्रूट्स आएगा तभी देखेंगे.
हाँ, आप लोग तो बना रहे हैं ना झाड़, entire forest already
Sapling है,
making.
sapling.
It's happening. It's very interesting you said that because, like I said, I think even that is part of the conditioning over the last many centuries, right? Putting artists on a pedestal, but what is actually happening is they are removing them from the equation. Sort of separating them from the rest of the world, from the people that consume art, and by, like you said, minting art by the dozen without trying to focus on the scarcity of it is so important, because art needs to be more out there and accessible to a lot of people. The same example that you had, Sajid, of feeling like galleries or the conventional art system is classist, is not just from the artist side, right? It's also from the consumer side or the art fan side. For the first 30 odd years of my life, I was made to feel like I was not either rich enough to appreciate or enjoy art, or not cultured enough to appreciate or enjoy art. What the NFT space did to me is like completely upend my own sense of self-worth. And that happened because I was able to start talking with artists, which is when I discovered that you guys are not aliens, or you're not a different species, but you are human beings. Though I do doubt that sometimes when I talk to artists, but the idea is that you're accessible, right? The art is accessible, the process is accessible. For me, that's like a massive like aha moment to me. And the fact that you are now so much part of the financial ecosystem of art for the first time, you have a
Yeah.
viable financial model around yourself, is mind blowing. And that happened like in not just in our generation, but over the last like 2-3 years. Like
Yeah.
early 2020, late 2019 is when the whole movement of 10% royalties for artists began, and it sort of came into force. And it's mind-blowing to me that I actually know the people, the 20 signatory artists that actually made this happen. I have spoken to each and every one of them. I'm friends with them. Is like amazing. Yeah, that makes us realize that we are not just early in this space, but that we are part of that 1% of people who got to this new island, or have discovered this new island, which is amazing. And it is global in nature. It's not a walled garden, but you can
Yeah.
open it up to the rest of the world. So yeah.
At this, I'll just add one more thing to it in the sense of like freedom of expression. Like art is all about expressing, and then the way it's always like the laws of physics almost like works in every kind of structure. When you say like to every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. When gates are getting closed in certain ways, there are multiple other gates or almost equal gates that open up. So these are the other gates that you open up, like the idea of in NFTs, you can be anonymous, you can be creating projects which are global in nature. It's not like a gallery you put up like something offensive and then some people come out and then they strike and then they tear the pages out and stuff like that. That's not possible. Like, it is possible in a lot of ways, but this sort of gives you that kind of freedom, to express and to be really like art needs to be also a tool for revolution. And this is what allows for it. Like, this can become like a weapon in a lot of.
Wow. I think we're at the top of the hour, and Kunal, any closing statements, any final thoughts from you?
No, I
Say
think
bye to everybody.
I think what you guys are doing here with Unlabel is, I think, pretty amazing. I think one of the things that it really does is that you can't obviously match the skill, but it demystifies the whole process, right? And I think that is really important to get more and more people involved, not only to consume art but also create art. I think that demystification is very important, and I think it's incredible that you guys are doing that. I think it will have a huge impact on anybody that wants to sort of enter the space and feels like maybe this is too much for me, or this is not something that I can do. I think it'll encourage a lot of people, and which is why I think it's great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kunal. I mean, it's an absolute delight to have you on board with us. Just not just talking with us, but actually building this out with us is, it's quite an honor, to say the least.
Yeah, it legitimizes everything, man. Like, it's just not just like few nerds just sitting on their computers and talking about it. Like, people like you out, like who are out there, like who legitimizes the situation way too much, man. Like, tastemakers are very, very much important in any kind of cultural like new revolution, I think.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, Vishwesh, you want to say something?
No, that's spot on what Sajid said.
It is.
He the man.
He's the man. Absolutely agree. And guys, we're at the top of the hour. Thank you all so much for joining in. This was an absolute pleasure, Vishwesh, Kunal, and Sajid. I enjoyed talking with you. This is, the whole Unlabel thing is just an excuse, a ruse for me to hang out with artists. That's all it is at the end of the day. The rest of it is all confetti. I'm going to leave you with one thought or a line that a colleague of mine at Unlabel, and this is a shout out to Nupur Prasad. She said about NFTs, and this is the thought I want to leave with you. NFTs are not pictures; they are the big picture. I thought that perfectly captured, everything that we're trying to do here, and that's kind of the slogan or the anthem for Unlabel itself. And all of you other artists, prospective artists that are listening in, feel free to write to us, feel free to hit us up. You will meet two people. One is Nupur, the other is the colorfully named Taco, who is basically, the executive producer of Unlabel here. They'll take really good care of you. They will, mash you in with a lot of chaos, with a lot of artists, with a lot of opportunities in the space. So feel free to write to us, and thank you again so much. Bye, everybody. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye,
Kunal.
guys.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.